Mike, do you think we should just go ahead and start and get this show on the road and start yakking?
I'm not opposed to that at all. So,
all right. Well, welcome everybody. Would you like to take it away, Mike? This is your show, so please run it however you would like to.
Yeah. Well, good morning to all of you, and we'll be, as some of you I'm sure have participated in some of these previously. It's kind of an open forum, if you will, for our Crackerbarrels that for those of you that have been at the conferences, tend to be the highlights of the conferences and the spring meetings as well. But so this is what we'll have to do for now. But keep our fingers crossed. By fall, we can actually maybe I'll see everybody in person. That would be really awesome. But we're going to start out this morning. We got kind of a two-parter going to do today. First off, thank all of you for joining. And we're going to start. We're going to talk about kind of reviews, that topic in general, and what some ideas you have to generate them. What do you do when you get bad ones? And then the second half, starting at about 10, Joel, our lobbyist, will be joining us, and he will kind of talk through the legislative issues as session started yesterday. And then we're going to talk a little bit about also what we're going to be doing for our Day on the Hill, which will be happening like we're doing today via Zoom. And so we're really going to encourage you to try to participate with that in March, and we'll talk about those at that time. And then we also have an opportunity to meet with the legislators in that, in a non-scary way, as we, for those of you that, are a little intimidated by going to the Capitol and that, this will be a chance to do it. And hopefully we can get representatives from all of our areas to participate with us on that and let them know the issues that we have. And so it'll be unique this year, but we're going to do that. And if time permits, we'll talk real briefly about kind of what we're going to do regarding the fundraiser we typically do at the fall meeting, and then some ideas that we've shared with that, and then kind of just general questions that you might have for Joel. So he'll be joining us at about 10. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and jump in? Again, I know it's early, we need coffee and stuff, but one of the things we talked about is on the board was, a topic that comes up frequently at Crackerbarrels, and that is, what do you do about reviews? And it can be anything from generating additional ones to responding. Do you respond? What do you do? And then unfortunately, you'll get one every once in a while at most, let's hope, that is maybe less than favorable. And then what do you do with those? So we'll kind of open up to that. If anybody wants to start, I certainly can, but I would rather hear from someone else to kick it off, and we'll just kind of go from there to start out. So. All right, I'm going to start because this is something that I deal with. We had a great little bump on number of reviews being left, specifically on TripAdvisor, and it has just plateaued, and it literally has stopped. And I've asked, we have it all over the place on our stuff. Is there things, or is this something we're also, part of the thing what's happening is that every time you buy something online or do anything, you get a survey back, and people are just getting immune to the request to fill out, how was your stay? How was your shopping experience when you bought paper towels? Those kind of things. And it's, so I think part of the challenge is getting it. Unfortunately, as we all know, reviews help us in our ratings on Google, on Facebook, on TripAdvisor. So has anybody found, tricks that have worked for them to get additional reviews or encourage people to do it?
Hi, this is Lee from Thompsonite Beach. And, TripAdvisor, I've had conversations with them because the ratings are really based on reviews. And when I look at the number of reviews that where I sit in the review, and I'm like, how can I get more reviews and be where kind of I feel like I should be in the listing. And so just recently I did with them, and I'm going to see how it goes, a sponsored placement to get me higher up, not necessarily using the reviews, but getting people to come. I have in the past, not necessarily this year, but when I've been given the opportunity, when people come in and they're telling me, oh, we had such a great stay, blah, blah, blah. And I may ask them, how did you find me? And if they've said they found me, via TripAdvisor or, on the web, and I will ask them, if you're so inclined, would you mind giving me a review? And, but also if there's something I need to improve, I'd like to know right now to my face what I can do. And, so I'm not real consistent with it. It just kind of depends on the vibe and the conversation that I'm having with my guest at the time. And oftentimes they're very receptive to doing that. And I've just heard, in talking to people that, yeah, they really do look at the reviews. So it is a true challenge to try and bump those reviews up. I am very good at responding, and whether or not it's, as soon as I see somebody's written something, I'm gonna be there to respond. And the negative ones are few. They're the hardest. And, I'm always willing to take ownership if it's something that I have, could do better, or yeah, you identified it, and, I'm willing to take ownership for it, because I also feel that reviews shouldn't all necessarily be glamorous. And if they are, that, it's, I don't know. I mean, it's just human nature, but anyway, that's my little input right now.
It'll be interesting to see how that sponsorship works on there, Lee.
Yeah,
With you,
it's using a cost per click.
Yep.
Because they bumped my rates up and I'm like, you guys, this is, I'm not interested in paying, more for this. And then they kind of came back and said, okay, we'll give you, last year's rates and $100 and a cost per click. And I'm like, okay, let's see what happens with that. And so, anyway, yeah.
And I do agree. It's really important to respond to them. We all use them for various formats, and I think one of the, especially when there's a negative in it, best thing to do is take it offline, and put a note in there to that effect. It's like, look, appreciate the fact that you had, you left a review. Sorry, there's something there. I'll, here's my contact. Reach out to me directly or reach out to them. The last thing I think anybody wants to do is get into a shouting match or
he said, she said
over that online is about the worst thing you can do. And sometimes they're not even legit. I've seen experiences with that where it's like, this isn't even a legit review. You got kids playing on a computer or whatever. So I think sometimes you have to be careful with what you respond. But I think it's very important to respond, and in a very timely manner, like you said, Lee. I think that's a great way to be on top of them. And part of the trouble I've had is also you'll find one on some obscure travel blog or site that is like a year old. So I'm like, well, kind of late to respond to that. But we did try incentives as well to get people to do it, and it was minor, but it was just hey, leave us a review, we'll give you something when you're when you stop in the store or whatever. And that didn't work either. I don't know. Kim.
Couple comments too, and one is I just typed in the chat. I copied and pasted how to respond. It was advice from an article that I linked and offered on the Facebook page that you can delve into. But their advice is if you get a negative review on Google Map or Google Reviews or TripAdvisor or wherever, their advice is to be timely, like Mike and Lee were talking about, respond within 48 hours for the greatest impact, be respectful, treat your reviewer like your most valued guest, and be proactive, just take an action. I think the biggest thing is acknowledgement, and then how you handle it and how you word it is going to be important. And I agree with Lee. I think that if all your reviews are, 5-star reviews, I think there's going to be some people out there that go, what? Is this a fantasy? Did they pay people to review it? So I actually think that it could be very healthy to have some issues come up every once in a while, and it's how you address them that's important. I have one other, two things. So the chat, by the way, for those of you who are not using the chat, make sure you look at the chat every once in a while. And just to remind everybody that you can actually chat to everyone. If you want to tap something or talk about a little bit more things in the chat, you certainly could. You can also just direct anybody who's on the screens right now. You can directly talk with them via chat if you'd like to do that too. And three, my third thing for personal, a lot of times people leave behind cords, stuffed animals, clothes, whatever. What we do here is, I know we've talked about this in Crackerbarrels before. What do you do with people who leave their shit behind, right? Do you mail them to them, or do you wait until they ask you? I mean, that's a whole nother topic. But one of the things that I've chosen to do is I mail back a lot of things, not everything, but a lot of things. And what I do is I don't ask for them to pay for shipping. If they ask, I'll just say, hey, you left us behind. You don't need to pay us for shipping, but maybe if you wouldn't mind leaving us an honest review, and I will put a link to either Yelp or TripAdvisor or whatever. And that's actually helped generate quite a few reviews over the years. So there's an idea for you. Who else?
Can you hear me, or do I have to get in line?
No, who's talking?
Sheila.
Good. Yes.
I noticed at VRBO, which I like about them, is that you rate each other. You rate the customer after their stay, and then they rate you.
That's
And
Airbnb though, right? Not VRBO.
VRBO, I've noticed that.
VRBO is starting to do that? That's wonderful.
They've been doing that for a long time since I've started. So you can actually check on a customer that's been with them and see what their ratings have been with them, seeing other places. So I like that, because you kind of both are like, okay, sounds fair. So I wish we could do that. That would be great.
That'd be great. Gosh. How have other people tried to generate reviews? Other ideas? No? Wow, it's a perky crowd this morning.
Not a coffee yet. So something that we are actually looking at right now, it's an add-on to ResStream, and it's a text-based software, for lack of a better way to say it. And what it does is it uses the data in ResStream, and it'll text instead of email. It uses text format. And so we're looking at it for, like, if something comes up, we have storm warnings in the summer, those kind of things, we can send a message out. We can have communication with our guests instantly that are on site for activities, that kind of thing. But it also has a feature that when they leave, you can set it up that it's a trigger, and it's like on the second day after they leave, that it sends them a text to rate you. And if it's anything less than a 5, it goes directly to you for respond. But if it's a 5, and this kind of contradicts what you were saying, Kim, it goes right into TripAdvisor, and you start a review process. So we're hoping that'll help us get additional reviews. And then we can send the 4s and the 4s, kind of forward that link to TripAdvisor as well. But you get a chance to look at it or respond to them before it goes directly into an outside vendor.
So Mike, that's a feature that's offered through ResStream, you're saying, or that's an additional outside source that you're connecting?
It's actually an outside source that's partnered with ResStream, and we haven't signed the contract yet with them, but we're gonna give it a try this year.
What's the company called? And can you share with us approximately ballpark of yearly?
It's like ACIA. I'll get it here while we're, I gotta find that because they just emailed me the terms. It's about $100 a month. And it's an add-on. But what I really like is it gives us a chance to communicate with guests while they're here. And it's in the text format versus email. And everybody, even if they're out on the lake, they got their phone with them. And I know get email that way too, but everybody's texting all the time. Like anybody has kids, you know, drives me nuts. They text you, you call them and they won't answer. But we're hoping that would be just a communication piece. And then also that review part was very intriguing to me. So we'll find out how effective it is here, starting probably in about May, we're going to start it.
So Mike, is that a two-way street then? Because I've been emails people are not always looking at, and they don't always go to the right box, and you know, and so I've been trying to think of ways to increase communication, them to me and me to them, especially when things are a little more contactless, at least at my property. I mean, I live here, but you know, people kind of come and do their thing. So is that a two-way street?
I believe so, yes, because there's an option that you can actually, for example, I can get our housekeepers on it as well. And when they're in a cabin, if there's a maintenance issue, they can take a picture of it and send it to me, text it to me. And then what I like is there's a permanent record of all this. All this stuff is archived. So then I can go back and then you can set up triggers. So let's say it's something that really doesn't need to be done like this exact instant, but maybe priority level 2, where before the end of the day, it'll flag a reminder on it. Also, if you set it up that way. So there's some other aspects of it that are pretty intriguing. It's relatively new, so I'm sure there's going to be some bugs, but yeah, there is the ability to respond back onto it from your messages and that as well. And I think you can set it up either way. So
okay.
But I will find that and put that in the chat here when someone else starts talking. So
has anyone had to deal with a negative review, and how did that go for you? Was there a lot of anxiety? Was it an easy piece of cake issue for you?
Mine's more seasonal camping. So go ahead, Lee. Sorry.
I could. This is it was. I had a real awful experience, and this person didn't even stay here, and it had to do with a communication on an email requesting lodging over the MEA weekend, and she was on a bike and she was biking up the shore and was inquiring about lodging. And I, at 10 p.m., emailed her back and said, yeah, I actually have a room available. And, you know, all of our policies are, you know, holding it with a credit card, blah, blah, blah. And oddly, at the time, we were having a little email glitch. And so supposedly she emailed us back, but a phone call came through and my husband booked the room. And you can just see how that escalated with, she went on to TripAdvisor and just slammed me for offering up a room and taking it away to somebody else that would stay more nights, whatever. I basically sent back the review on TripAdvisor stating my position. I apologized. I told her how we handled things. I did admit that I didn't see her email and we were having some issues. She happened to say, well, I was working. I couldn't get away to, you know, make a call and do this, but she expected just with that first email for that reservation or my notation that there was a room available, that it was hers. And following that, my response, and she responded again, and it kind of went this, back and forth. Finally, she removed her first one because I pretty much called her out on everything in an appropriate, respectful way, because I think anybody reading it would go, well, Chicky, you know what? You didn't have a credit card on the room. You didn't have all this stuff. And then she put it back in again. And it's there. I mean, if you guys ever want to go, take a look at it, it's down in the #1s on TripAdvisor for Thompsonite Beach. And, finally, I might have had the last state. I am just like, I'm sorry. I can't, I'm sorry. And, anyway, it,
Sounds like
there's
greatly. It sounded like you handled it within a timely manner. It sounded like you were appropriate, you were respectful, and you just let it slide, and that was exactly the right thing to do. Boom, that's it.
Yeah. And you can't please everybody.
Nope.
And, and a couple others that I have on there. I mean, I've done the same thing, and you just look at them and you go, okay, yeah, but what do you want me to do? If you're going to slam, then I think be ready to have somebody respond to what you're complaining to them about. And, if they're not, I mean, so anyway.
You did the right thing. Like, kudos.
Yeah, who knows? Kudos, who knows?
All right. Well, anybody else have an experience that they want to share, or talk about more reviews, or nope? Wow, silent.
I did post that. If I found it, it's in the chat, down in the chat there for anybody that is interested in looking at it. So the name of the company's on there. So, and we worked through with Jeff with Redstream heat. So I'll have more. Hopefully.
By the way, we'll get you. Well, by the way, we have a Redstream demonstration next Tuesday at 9 o'clock. So if anybody wants to attend that, including those of you who already have Redstream, sometimes just by looking, you can see some other features that you're not using that maybe you could. And also there's a Cloudbeds reservation company that will be doing a demonstration on next Thursday. So just wanted to do a plug there. Okay, sorry, Sheila, go ahead, honey.
Well, that's okay. As far as the reviews are concerned, if somebody has a bad review, I thought you could go to, like, if it's on Google, you can go to Google and talk to them about removing it, can't you? And how do you do that? My son usually does it. If we had one, I've had him. We had somebody that wrote something about the campground. They've never been here.
Do you know?
Like, how can they?
I'm gonna say.
That's not.
I was just gonna say on TripAdvisor, that review, I did call and I just said, this is wrong. I mean, it's brutally wrong. And they would not remove it.
Kind of like a credit card company. They're always with the customer type thing.
Well, and they kind of walked me through the best ways to try and mitigate it. And so, but that, I guess that's my only point. With TripAdvisor, they were not going to remove the review unless, I suppose, it was, I don't know what the unless was, but that one I requested and they did not. So
I just got an email, by the way, I think it was last week. It looked like a junk email for a company that was offering to do exactly that, take your negative review off of Google. Has anybody else gotten an email? It looked like spam to me.
Yeah, I just deleted it. I saw that too, and they're like, "Yeah, we can remove this." And I was like, I couldn't even find the one they were referencing.
Well,
I saw that too.
They paid to remove it.
I'm like, all right. So,
I don't know.
but
Yeah.
what's interesting is we had this summer. It wasn't even it was a good review, but the lady started. It was very long and started talking about another guest and how they weren't adhering to COVID procedures, and it's kind of one of those. I just thanked her for the review, and and I just said, some people respond, and are treating this differently. However, I said we've put out our policy and how we, what we feel is appropriate, but it was interesting because she just went on and on about this one lady and her kids. And I just was like, take that up with the lady and the kids, so.
I typically have, I have left all of our reviews, negative or positive. Most of them are positive, thankfully. Most of the negative ones were people that never even have crossed foot on my property, or they were driving by, or I've never recognized I guess I've had a 3. That's a negative. That stayed at my property, but any of the ones have never stayed, or I don't even know who they are. But I leave them all, and I figure that people that complain for things that seem out of our control, that makes them look bad, not us. I respond to them all and thank them with a smile on my face for reviewing us. And if it's positive, I'm going to give them a little more feedback. If it's negative, and I can address it, I certainly will. I've hardly had anything I could address. One was mad because of our hours. We also have a restaurant. So typically I find, because we've had a restaurant, they rarely review my resort. They review the restaurant, or they review the lake. They review the fishing. They review things that are, I think, kind of ridiculous. But I like to just leave them all on there. I think it makes you look authentic. I've never had to argue with anybody. So when I've responded back, I've never had anyone, I've kind of waited in hoping that they would respond back. So then on some of those negative ones, and I think, well, then I wonder if they just go around and do negative reviews everywhere. And I don't know.
Like a troll.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think some are trying to just up there. They have to, I don't understand how all of that works, but some of them are getting ratings themselves by going around rating, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
On Airbnb and VRBO anyway. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, I do think it's important to respond to them. And I guess if I had something on there that I thought was very unfair, I would probably try to fight it, if it really made us look bad, which can happen. I mean, and I think, as someone that even goes on vacation, I do read reviews. However, and I don't know how you guys all feel, but I don't look at every negative review as a bad thing for that property.
Nope.
I know that some people are just mean. So.
Or had a bad day, or something else. Yep. I think you're right. I think you hit right on it, Linda. I think that it also lends some authenticity to legitimate business. So.
But if I had a scathing review that I thought was damaging, I think I would do my best to try to review it. And Lee, you said you were unable to on Travelocity, or I'm sorry, on was it TripAdvisor?
TripAdvisor.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't had too much experience, so this is all new for me. So it's fun to, to see how other people are handling it, and also how other people are advertising. So you guys advertise on TripAdvisor, or you're on TripAdvisor. But Mike, do you advertise on TripAdvisor?
No, we did for a while, and then I was like, I found out that was, yeah, you don't, for us, it was, we got the exact same benefit for not having to pay the extra.
Okay.
So, but
yeah, I mean, I've had the business advantage plan with TripAdvisor, and I mean, this might be a good question, because I've done this for probably 4 years now with them. And I think you can be on TripAdvisor, and people can still review you without the business advantage. And maybe I've decided that having that review and having the management and putting in little special offers and active storytelling and all this stuff, it's TripAdvisor is a good platform for me, and it will be interesting. Like I mentioned earlier, the cost per click and this kind of sponsored placement to see if that actually generates more bookings through my site, and it'll just be interesting to kind of see. But yeah, so to be determined.
So I'm wondering, segue into how you elicit feedback from your guests. And I'm wondering, I think that I've been a big proponent for all 20 years we've been doing this, for leaving a feedback form in a cabin before anybody arrives. So we leave a feedback form on the dining table with one of the pens with our name on it, Crowing Crest Lodge, and they can take the pen with it, or it's another realm of thing of advertising. But I'm wondering, because we leave the feedback forms on there and we really seek advice, and I'm very careful about putting both positive and negative options. In other words, on the feedback form, I blurb about, hey, these are all the things that we did this spring. Thanks for coming. Remember, you live in the cabins. We do not assume that we know about a broken screen door or a toilet handle that's broken. Please let us know ASAP if you could. And I think leaving that on the table all week gives them an opportunity to write down the little things that when they're coming to rebook with us or pay their tab at the end of the week, sometimes there's just too much going on for them to remember the little details throughout the week that happen. So I really appreciate that. And again, I also give them an opportunity, hey, what would you suggest here at the resort? What is not working? What would you like to see here? And also, what is your favorite thing at the resort? So for me, it was important to get the positive too. And I also asked if they wouldn't mind, if you wouldn't mind us using your comments on marketing or as a testimonial, please sign your name. I get a lot of people who will leave something really nice and sign their name, giving me permission to use that testimonial on my brochure or the website. So I'm wondering what other people do to elicit feedback and how your experience has been collecting that information, and just wanted to see what your experience has been. Anyone?
Yeah,
We are new to, again, having people review us, even though we've been around for over 100 years. And I think we had for so long not a presence online, and then we just have never thought to do that. So I enjoy, Kim, hearing your ideas, and I love keeping it positive. What are things that we can fix in your cabin? To me, that's still a positive. That means we want to take care of that. But we're not asking them necessarily a good or bad opinion, but just I like keeping it more positive. It still allows them to write something negative if they need to. But,
yeah.
And I love the idea of leaving an actual form in the cabin. I realize everyone is so, on their phones, but a lot of our customers are still old school and they don't mind writing, they wouldn't mind jotting down a few things.
No, and they will. And the more practice they get doing it, I found over 20 years, the more they'll do it. And you'll find that we've gotten a lot of just wacky stuff people write down. I mean, people write weird shit all the time. So some of it's funny. Some of it's like, okay, I suggest, we would really like a cabana boy to come bring us drinks on the beach. That's funny. And, we laugh about it. But there's a lot of stuff that, people complain about. Well, you really need to pick up all the pine cones. Our bare feet walking from our cabin to the beach it's just too hard on bare feet. And I'm just like, oh my God. So it's not about having a thick skin when you're reading it. I think it's more about perception and realizing that everybody's in their own little world. They have no idea what it takes to run a resort. So you just got to read them and, toss it if it's just ridiculous. Or if you see three of people commenting saying, you know what, it'd be nice if there were less weeds in the beach area. Oh gosh, I haven't looked at the beach for a while. Maybe I better go down. Oh, yep, they're right. Maybe we should, cultivate a little bit more, pay attention to that area a little bit more. So I found it to be incredibly helpful. In fact, I keep stacks every year. And here's my stack from this year that I keep. And sometimes I really just like going through and reading them, because there's a lot of positive stuff. So it's good to sort of invite that too, invite them to do both what their favorite thing about your resort is and what they would like to improve, not only for your own sanity, I think, but it also is going to help you market yourself and your resort, because the more positive comments you get about a certain feature at your resort, the more you realize that you have a unique feature versus other resorts. So that's my 2 cents.
One of the things that I used to do pre-COVID, I had guest books in the room that, you know, people could write their comments in. And so, I mean, I've got years or even decades, I guess, of information that way. And I took them out this year because of, you know, the fact everybody was going to be touching them and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I do like your, you know, a way for me to kind of continue with that, because I go back in those books and I can pull some of those reviews, and maybe I just put a first name on my TripAdvisor, where I can say, you know, or maybe not even TripAdvisor, actually it's on my website where I've got, you know, personal comments or reviews, and we'll just put somebody's first name, and haven't really asked for their permission, but if it's a first name, I don't think I'm encroaching on somebody's privacy. But I don't think. Anyway, but those books really do provide, you know, good information on, like you say, if that same feature keeps coming up, it's like, yeah, I do have a gem here. And, you know, what can I do to, you know, improve on that or foster that or market that? And then, you know, I do get people that do make some comments and they say, yep, yeah, I wish you would have told me that personally, but I'm not going to tear it out. It's okay, you know. And so I like I could still get that information now, maybe by doing something you're doing, Kim, and putting a sheet in the room and letting them fill it out if they so choose to.
Yeah. Kristen, you had a comment, it looked like.
Mine was very similar to Lee. We also had books in our journals in our cabins prior to COVID, and we pull a lot of information from that. But we really are trying to teach our guests to tell us when things are wrong so we can fix them right away. It doesn't do me any good to go in on a Saturday morning and have a list a mile long of things that need to be fixed in the cabin, because we probably won't get it done before the next group comes in, depending on the day. So, you know, we've worked really hard with our repeat people to, you know, tell us right away. And we've had, you know, guests will bring down, oh, this bowl has a crack in it. It's like, well, thank you. Here's a new one. And they're just flabbergasted because the people we bought it from never really reacted to things. So over time, it's worked really well to just try and get on those things right away.
Kristen, how do you do that? How do you communicate that when they check in, or?
A lot of it's just been, you know, if somebody does mention something, we just fix it right away. And so then they just are trained now. They see, well, hey, and they also see us constantly working on the resort. And just those things have, over the last 8 years, have really kind of trained them. I mean, we didn't do anything special. It's just in conversations. And like I said, we're always visible. So they see us always doing something. You know, as far as turning those comments and things into reviews, we really haven't done anything to foster reviews. We get them, and for the most part, they've been really good. I did have one guest. She's an older lady, and she's on Facebook, and she left us this glowing review, but gave us a 1 because she didn't understand how the system worked. She didn't understand that a 1 was the worst. So, you know, we had to respond to that. And of course, she just felt awful and the whole bit. And her son fixed it for her right away. But, you know, so you get some of that too. But yeah, we really haven't focused on reviews and turning it into, you know, a thing. So that's something we probably should do. But so it's interesting to hear what other people are doing.
You know, one thing, you know, we do that, Kim, when people check in, we have a sheet, and it drives me absolutely crazy when people check out and they're like, yeah, there was a bulb burnt out over the kitchen sink. And I'm like, we have hundreds of them. Why didn't you just come up and tell me? So on that email or that text system I was saying about, we're actually going to put on the day after they get here, there's going to be a text that goes out that says, there's anything you notice in your cabin, and I'm going to specifically list light bulbs because that is my kryptonite, I guess, of my Superman, that when people tell me light bulbs are out, it drives me nuts. Because it's a super easy fix. I have thousands of different, I got lots, but we also do the sheets, and I think people, the problem is I've seen them, some of the guests have been coming for forever. They see them, they don't even look at them anymore. And so the challenge is to try to do, so that's why I'm hoping this texting, being it's new, people are going to be responsive to it in a much better way than they were with our sheet that we pass out. And the comments on them sometimes are absolutely hysterical. You're absolutely right, Kim. And they, some are intentional and others are like, wow. Yeah, we're not going to be picking up seashells in the sand because that's just part of the sand. And yeah, so. So,
I'll jump in if we got a quiet spot, I guess.
yeah, go for it, KC.
Oh, I have patently refused to use TripAdvisor or Google or most of those, and I don't have pretty good control of the conversation. For most of our reviews and stuff, we've generated mostly one of two ways, other than just the ones that show up on their own. We do a lot of contests, usually picture contests. We did one every fall. Send in your picture, whoever gets the most likes in the comments wins a 1 week cabin rental in a 2-bedroom cabin. Any cabin, whatever it's available for the week. And we'll get hundreds of submissions, and you get lots of, you get to show off all these pictures that people took all summer long to everybody else, and they're going out to all their friends, all their family, like, hey, come look up, like my picture, like my picture, I want to win this week, yada yada. And that's done really well for us the last 4 or 5 years. The thing I learned this last year is, for some reason, when I rant at people on Facebook, and I say rant in a, not like I do it in my shop where I kick the walls and curse their name, but on Facebook, I will take a picture of something that's like, all right, folks, what did you do here? Why did you break the bed or whatever? And very nice, very cordial. And then the response coming back as, oh, we've been there for 20 years and we would never think of breaking a bed. And Arcadia is just the best place in the world, and yada, yada, yada. For whatever reason, the rants have done extremely well for me this last year. I don't know why, but that's worked for us. So Facebook works for us mostly because we use it on a daily basis. We're pretty good at interacting with the guests that way and stuff like that. I don't know, that's my thing, I guess.
The picture contest, that's on Facebook. So they post their picture on Facebook and then there's a like to each picture.
Yeah, so we usually do a post, and then they put their picture in the comments of that post. So then all their friends, all their family, anybody that they want to like that picture has to come to our page, go to the post, find their picture, and as they're finding that picture, they're scrolling past everybody else's picture. Kids at the beach, the fish, the lakes, sunsets, all that good stuff.
Okay.
It's a 2-bedroom cabin. It's worth about $1,500. So we do the contest.
Yeah.
That's the only cost, and we've generated typically 10 to 20 new rentals every time we do it. We're also putting that out to, we're almost at 22,000 followers now on Facebook.
Wow.
So we have a pretty big pool to play with.
That's great. Okay.
Do that with just the fishing contest, Casey, or is it like your favorite picture of the summer type thing?
Exactly. Yep. We don't usually don't specify fish or anything else. Once in a while, when I'm going back in my photos and going, oh, shit, I haven't got any good fishing pictures in 3 years, or we're a big catch and release lake, so most of the fish never get back to the dock. They take the pictures out of the lake, and and have that. When I was a kid, I'd run around with the Polaroid camera when I was 8 or 10 years old, and as a fish hit the dock, you just there and take the pictures, and you don't have that option anymore for us. So this has worked out pretty well for that. Once in a while we do a fun one, like I was building a little shed by the beach, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, and sitting up on top of the rafters, and I had this gorgeous sunset over the bay, and I was like, oh, this will be fun. This is my work, this is my office for the day. Show me your office. We do fun stuff like that, just to keep people talking and liking the page. But with 22,000 people now, I put something out there, it goes to all those people. So we do pretty well in trying to fill like last minute cancellations and stuff like that. Goes pretty well with that.
So that's right where I was going with that, with following up with you on that, is you find that helps with your, are you able to market obviously off of that then as well?
Yeah.
And one thing that you kind of said that, I don't, without saying it, that people love to see their picture on your site. It's amazing.
And we're careful at the bottom. I put a tagline in saying, if you don't want me to use this for advertising, tell me. And no, tell me not to use it.
Yeah. So that's a great. You're dead on with that. I'm impressed with your Facebook following. We got to bump ours, but it is, people love seeing it. We did a fish this year. Everybody had changed stuff. We did a fishing contest, and all they did is like you said, took a picture of the fish. We didn't care what size it was. We just did age groups, and we did a random drawing for each one. And I was like, yeah, we'll see how this works. It was huge. And the thing that was cool is that Grandpa and Grandma were out fishing with the kids, and they all took pictures because then they could all get entered into the contest. And we had just a little giveaway for it. But, it was a simple thing that we were trying to fill in from stuff that we couldn't do. And they all got their picture on Facebook every week. And yeah, they still get comments about it on Christmas cards. So,
yep. There's a place over on Sand Lake, Sandhaven, I think they are. I follow them on Facebook. They hired a Woody from a Toy Story, the little acting whatever around the resort. And the kids go out and they find the little figurines. So every day there's a new picture of some 5-year-old holding up the Woody doll, smiling with their new Sandhaven t-shirt. They must buy a couple hundred of those small t-shirts just for that. But I mean, I've been trying to figure out something to do like that here, because that's smiling kids on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, pretty much guaranteed to make you money. So
yep, that's for sure. That's a great idea too. I like that one.
Yep, we did one. I tried one. We had a group left a great big tip for the cleaners and a big long note and some painted rocks that they had done up, and they had hide these around the resort. Our kids had a great time trying to find them, and we did it for a couple of weeks before I got too busy to pay attention. I had my daughters go out and hide them, and we said, bring back the painted rock and get an ice cream cone. So then you got a couple pictures of kids with these great big ice cream cones and a smile and holding the rock, and he kept them busy for 4 hours while they were out hunting the woods for this painted rock. So.
Those are good ideas. Thank you.
I know it's kind of turned into a little bit about activities, but we did, again, I got the idea I got the idea on the bus back from Day on the Hill. So I'm going to tie this into my, for coming up here. But Bob Barton and I think it was Coles, we were talking about a medallion hunt. And so we put one into place this summer. Holy cow, was that a hit? And I remember Bob Barton telling me, make it hard. And he's not wrong. People are into that. And so now the problem is I got to figure out where I'm going to put it next year, because I had like 3 spots and now I can't use those again. And one was really good. 2 of them were okay, but I tell you what, it's a whole family thing and people are into that. I was shocked. I mean, people were like, oh yeah, we were up at 6 this morning. We were thinking about it last night at dinner. We were talking about where could it possibly be. And it's like, wow, it's just a plastic medallion. It's not, but it is. I mean, those kind of things, sometimes you just don't realize how big of an impact something pretty innocent can have. Like, so when you said that Woody doll, that's awesome. What a great idea. I mean,
I've been trying to think of something to match it, and I haven't come up with anything in like 2 years yet. So,
so
we actually hide a wooden fish. Being that
you gave me your clues too. That's right. Because I remember we were trying to come up with writing up the clues.
And we've been doing it for years. And like you said, Mike, obviously with COVID, we did no activity. Well, I realize some of you did do activities this summer. We didn't do any activities this summer, but we did do our medallion hunt. We felt like that was something we could do that was, you know, safe with our, you know, just keep the family units going out and looking for that fish. And it is such a huge hit. But I am hoping that we can bring back some activities this summer, but I don't know what's going to happen yet. So
Can I
We had the
ask on
problem
that? Whoops. I was just going to ask
go
on the
ahead.
medallion hunt. Is that because you guys do weekly rentals that you would do that once a week? Yeah, my guests are scattered anywhere from, 2 to, week-long reservations. And how are you doing it once a week or once a month, or how does everybody participate that way?
of course, we only do it once a year and we make it really hard. And, we have a lot of seasonals, but then our campers that are cabin renters that are there for that week, they have their, the one clue, and they do spend all week looking for that week, so we only run it basically in the month of July, and we make it
Okay.
so hard that no one is going to find it until the very last clue. But it keeps them interested and looking, and occasionally they do find it sooner than that. But I know a lot of you do it weekly, but that's a lot of work.
Okay. Thanks.
We do ours weekly, and we have check-ins on Friday and Saturday. So ours started, I think we started Monday morning. We had 4 clues. So we do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we had some people come up multiple times. So that was a challenge to make sure we didn't do the same one when they were here. But we had 3 different spots, and it was a huge hit. So, hey, I see Bob's on there too. I just was giving you a props for helping create my Medallion Hunt idea from on the bus on the day on the hill last year. So
I still haven't seen any cash out of that, Mike. So
yeah, well, you haven't been down here yet, so you got to find it.
we do virtually the same thing. We do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it's been one of those things. Well, we've been doing it so long now, we're running out of places to hide it. I mean, it's getting to be that, but it's something we can't walk away from now, man. As soon as they get here, when the clue's coming out, same as last year, tomorrow morning.
So Bob, how do you put the clues out? Do you have like a piece of paper, or do you announce it on like a Facebook post? And then what's the prize at the end?
So we have chalkboards outside. We've got a welcome board, and then we've got like an announcement board. And on the announcement board, it says Medallion Hunt, and clues are available in the office at 9 every morning. So we've just got them out. We have a table in the office. They're sitting there. They come in, they help themselves, and whoever finds it, they get $25 towards whatever they want to buy in the office, whether it's candy, ice cream, t-shirt, whatever. The most hysterical thing about this is you get little kids during the week wanting extra clues, and and you'll say, well, all it takes is money, and pretty soon I've got kids coming up going, well, I'll give you $50 to tell me where it's at. Kids, do the math. It's costing you. So, but that's me. I torment children all summer. What can I tell you?
Yeah, and I found, Bob, you're right. You got to make it hard. And on the last clue basically tells them where it's at, and we have them lined up. So we do a board also, a blackboard, and I put a piece of paper over the top, and then at 9 o'clock, lift it up, and they're all with their phones taking a picture, and they're off running, and it was a big deal. So you're right. There's no way we're not doing it next year. So
yeah, wait. That and campfire donut night, man. We can't walk those back if we wanted to at this point.
Yep.
So Mike, what was your prize each week? So Bob said he gave $25.
I totally plagiarized off Bob. We went $25. We give them. So we started out doing the $25 against something at the resort, but a lot of times we'd have a family with 3 kids doing it. So we just went $25 cash. I give them 25 ones. Kids think it's the greatest thing in the world. I get it all back about 10 minutes later.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's a win-win. So, But it was, honest to God, it was fun. I got my daughters in to help do the. I mean, writing up the clues is half the fun, and it was a hit. So it'll continue on. So
Katie and I sit down, and usually one of the kids with us if they're home, and it'll be, well, okay, we got to come up with the clues today. And we've been doing this for 12 years, and I don't know why we all sit down, because I'm the one who writes the clues. It's just the way it is. But you know, the great thing is we give away $25 worth of stuff, and it costs us $12.50. What the hell? I mean,
I got one thing before we move on to the next thing. Speaking of things that are hard for the guests and why for some reason they love it, we started doing a trivia night.
Mhm.
So teams of 6, and I make it hard, like 60 questions. If you get 30 right, you're probably going to win. And watching the groups scream at each other, I was right, you were right, all over $100 gift certificate that's only good in the gift shop. So again, I get half of it back when they buy a sweatshirt. And for some reason, they just love screaming at each other, and they have the greatest time. And it's Tuesday night, and it's the weirdest thing in the world when things are hard, but they love it. So every year now, it takes me a couple days to come up with hard enough questions to ask them. The world is a funky place. That's all I know.
We do that, Casey, and it's fun. It's like the very first round, it's pretty subdued. By round 5, I mean, it's almost like, okay, calm down.
They're
over
brawling.
there.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep, and we do 10 questions or so, and then we check our answers, and we kind of keep track as we go like that. So they really get into it after by about round 3. They're, you're always wrong. Get off my table. It's hilarious.
Exactly. So, hey, I think we got Joel here. So I'll see if he's able to jump on, if he's available yet, and we can let him kick off the legislative side of this.
Hey, Mike, I'll be right with you. I just
Okay.
got to wrap up one quick thing.
No worries, Joel. We'll jump in when you're ready. So,
one of the fun things that I find about the Medallion Hunt is after you write the clues, these people think you've spent a year developing these clues, and that they've got some sort of deep meaning.
Oh,
and they don't. And they'll sit there and they'll be overanalyzing. They'll go, well, is this what it means? Well, it could.
Yep.
It could mean exactly that. And then, what does it mean this? It very well could. And that you just watch them, their heads explode. I mean, they're trying to decipher it like it's Greek or something. It's like, oh my God, it just rhymes. That's why that word is in there.
Yep, that is, you're right. And it's funny, they'll come up to every one of my staff members and ask them if they can give them extra clues and what does this mean? And so, hey, we got Joel here. So
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And I'll just kind of let you take it away. Joel, for those of you that haven't met, Joel is our lobbyist and has been for quite a number of years. I'm not even going to say how long. And has a wonderful relationship with most of the legislators down there, I would say, and is highly, highly respected, because every time we go to the Day on the Hill, people always comment about how much they enjoyed working with Joel and his helpful insights for the resort side of things as well. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Joel. We'll kind of let you go first,
Okay.
and then we'll kind of take questions as they go.
Sounds good. Well, good morning, everyone. I just put my email address and my cell phone number in the chat for anyone who wants to take that down, and you feel free to use either one of those methods to communicate and contact me on legislative, or I get a lot of other business related issues as well. So feel free to reach out. I've represented the CMR at the Capitol since 1997. So I'm not embarrassed to say it. And it's a labor of love for me. I really admire what you do. It's part of our quality of life in Minnesota, and I'm very committed to doing everything we can to make sure the family-owned resort business can remain viable in Minnesota. We want to have a little discussion today with a broader group of resorters about what you're feeling are issues with government regulations and legislation and game and fish that we can develop into legislative issues I don't invent issues for the CMR. What happens in our process is, we will have a conversation like this with people who are interested in, government affairs, and our issues percolate from these conversations. So when you have something that that is, a stone in your shoe about some type of regulation or how things are operating, this is an opportunity for our members to have input into developing a legislative agenda. And I'll just briefly comment because in looking at the Hollywood squares here, I know that most of you have heard my drivel before, but CMR tries to work on issues that have a significant impact on resorting that we have an opportunity to pass. I use this example. Property taxes are probably your single largest operating expense, and certainly your largest government imposed operating expense. If I could eliminate your property tax, it would have a huge impact on your business. I have zero chance of passing that at the Capitol. And so we don't work on that. We work on things that we can pass across the goal line that will have an improvement and an impact on improving your ability to be in business and stay in business. So those are the kinds of issues that we have worked on over the years. We've had some level of success on issues like the school calendar and property taxes and game and fish regulation. We've also been successful in making sure that bad things don't happen, whether it is different taxes that are proposed to be imposed on businesses or other regulatory issues. And so we do play defense at the Capitol as well. So, Mike, that's just kind of a little background of how we approach our work at CMR. And I have a couple issues that I want to get your advice and input on. And then I want to hear from you as to, what are the cutting edge issues that are impactful right now. And during the pandemic, we've tried to reach out to members and get as many resorters engaged and involved in our activities, whether it's training for what you need to have on hand for PPP, or whether or not your pool can be open, or your restaurant, and how those things are going. We're trying to get as much of that information out to members as possible, and we want to continue to do that. And we've tried to do that while on overlapping a legislative session at the same time. And I hope we didn't miss anything that was important. As an example of us responding to COVID, but also doing our legislative work, we, over a couple of years with Tom Marnick and Jim and others, developed a working relationship with the Department of Labor and Industry about how youth employees can operate at resorts. And that culminated actually in the legislature successfully passing legislation that allows, with proper training, younger employees, 16 and 17-year-olds, to do more power-related work at the resort, whether it's a riding lawnmower or a gas-powered weed whacker. That has a real impact on your business. And it took us 2 years cooperatively to address that issue, but we made it happen. And we did that during a pandemic. And so we can have an impact on the Capitol when we are focused and staying on task. And that's what we intend to do in 2021. The session itself will be focused on the state budget. They're addressing about a $1.4 billion budget deficit. They're hoping as the economy rebounds that deficit might come down a little bit. But we know they're going to have a shortfall of some variety, because if you just factor in inflation for prisons and meals and the transportation gas budget, if you factor inflation into the budget right now, the deficit is closer to $3 billion. Not everything is grown by the same amount in the economy, but there is a increased cost that they have that is by law not included in the budget forecast, and that will put further pressure on the budget. We are also going to be doing the session remotely. We will be having committee hearings that look just like this. And if we want to testify, we'll have to be do it remotely. When we want to engage with legislators and we have a plan to do that, we need to do it remotely. The Capitol is closed to the public, and the state office building is closed to the public. The Senate office building is closed to the public right now. They're talking about doing some in-person activities a little bit later on in the session, assuming the vaccine rollout is successful. But that's an unknown question at this point. So we're going to be doing a lot of Zooms. It's very efficient. I get up in the morning, I have a cup of coffee, and I turn on 3 computers and I watch the committee hearings and interact with legislators through the computers. And you can do it all day long. And it's 8 o'clock at night, and you're like, I'm tired. I don't know what I did all day, but this is really something. So that's what we're going to be doing in 2021. And I'll just kind of, Mike, see what what the assembled have to say. And then I have a couple issues that I want to make sure that we get on the table and make sure that we're on the same page as far as what we want to be addressing with legislators. So thank you for having me, and look forward to 2021.
Joel, the only other thing I'll have you maybe just quickly touch about how, kind of what Day on the Hill will look like for us, and how we anticipate that to be. And the dates on that are March 9th and 10th.
Right.
And if you, I'll just let you take them. We'll kind of see, we'll go questions too.
And I absolutely want you to put the Day on the Hill on your calendar, and would also like you to mark down the January 27th at 4:30. And I'll start with the dates on the calendar are closer than they appear. And so let's start with the January 27th date. We are going to have about a half hour, 45-minute, just get to know you, a virtual meeting with what we call the resort area delegation. We don't have a lot of resorts that are south of 94. That's just the fact of our topography. It's lake driven, and there just aren't a lot of resorts in some parts of the state. But we have a key group of legislators that do represent resort areas, and those are what we consider saints. We need them to be on board and on point for all of our issues, and we're going to have an introductory meeting with them on the 27th of January at 4:30 for any of them that can hop on a Zoom meeting like this, and both as a chance to introduce and reintroduce ourselves to them, but to give them just a teaser about here's some of the issues that we're going to be tracking in 2021. Then in March, we are going to have a virtual Day on the Hill, and that is a work in progress right now. But those will be a little different in that we will have a group of resorters like this, and hopefully more, and one legislator at a time. And that's a chance for us to one-on-one get to know them, tell them a little bit about ourselves, but also tell them one-on-one about the issues that we're working on and how it impacts us. My office will set up those individual meetings with legislators. We try to catch not only just the resort delegation to touch base with them, but we will try and talk to committee members on the committees where we know we have issues. And one of the places we know we're going to have an issue this year is in the tax committee. And so we will try and set up individual one-on-one meetings with tax committee members to talk about resort property taxes and the limitations that we have to retain our tax classification and how we can better serve the economy by maybe either relaxing some of those restrictions or looking at some types of rentals as not being for recreational use. And there are some resorts that are able to utilize their facilities for workforce housing, people that are temporarily working in, December and January and February, that you can use your facility for, that you might not have guests coming in. But we don't want to do that kind of rental for a longer stay and have it affect your tax classification. The penalty for going over the 250 days of recreational use is that your taxes move to full commercial. Nobody wants that outcome, and nobody should have that outcome. But the law right now can be a little restrictive, and if you have a very aggressive assessor, and some of the counties do, it can be a financial headache for resorts should they go over that 250 days, and we would like some clarity on that issue. So we're going to talk to tax committee members about that issue. We did have hearings on that issue in the House last year, but as the pandemic settled in, it was really hard to get much traction beyond COVID and relief type tax related issues. We did pass a provision relating to short-term rentals. That was really the only thing that got across the goal line as it related to tourism and resort activities. So that's how Day on the Hill is going to work. It's going to be virtual, but instead of a group like this, we're going to have one legislator at a time with multiple resorters trying to communicate with them.
And I think part of our goal would be to try to have a resort minimum of one, preferably more, per when a legislator's on from their jurisdiction. Because as we've experienced in the past, if you're, if I'm going in and talking to someone from Lake of the Woods, I have less impact than I do from someone that's up from Lake of the Woods. So they like to listen to their own, and rightfully so. So we will, as we get that, we'll definitely going to be, you'll be hearing from us, trying to coordinate times and make sure you're available as a group. Kind of talking to the people here and our CMR membership in whole. So really would like to see a much better turnout than we do in person, and I think we will. So
that's certainly the hope, Mike. And I don't want to minimize the importance of having that connection with the legislators that represent your resort. We've tongue in cheek said, the number one job of legislators is to make sure they get to keep their job, and making sure that the constituents in their district are happy with the job they're doing is really important. And so when they get visited by 3 or 4 businesses within their district and they get asked to do something, it's hard for them to say no. And so, we really want to emphasize that the fact that on those resort meetings, getting them engaged in our agenda and willing to put their shoulder to the stone and push is really important, because voters matter, and that's important.
Yeah, well said. So I guess let's just kind of open it up right now. If anybody has specific questions for Joel or legislative process or the things that are on your mind. And I know we have, as the board has talked about some, and Joel has some ideas as well. But again, if there's something specific that you have or you have a question on, that was a great opportunity to get Joel's ear.
I got a question for Joel. I know that there was some, hi honey, there was some new legislation that you were chatting about in the board meeting the other day of VRBO short-term rental, a piece of legislation that passed and is going to affect this January 1st. How does that affect us directly, or how does it affect those of us who have a VRBO or an extra house or something of that nature?
If you happen to have in your portfolio a property that is not contiguous or attached to your resort and the assessor treats it as not part of your resort property, and they have created a new classification, or let me rephrase that. They have included in an existing classification a new category for short-term rentals, which are vacation properties that are rented out for periods of 30 days or less, and to multiple individuals. So it's not, one guest rents your cabin for the summer. And they have clarified the tax status for those short-term rentals. I would say compared to the seasonal recreational category that that property is classified right now as, it's pretty, it's a lateral change. There's really not any significant tax change. What is what needed to be addressed and what was problematic for those properties, some are connected to resorts and some are just short-term rentals that people do on their own or a realtor runs, is the assessor was taxing them as full commercial hotel type properties, right? And the difference between 0.5% of market value as your tax base and 3% of market value as your tax base is a big deal. So getting that clarified helped resorters that are in that space, and but also helped people that are doing short-term rentals as a business or their property that they utilize for short-term rentals. So it clarified that for all of them and didn't bump them into the full commercial rate that the assessor was saying that's what they were going to tax them at. There are a couple protections. If you're going away for a couple weeks and you want to rent out your cabin, that's not going to put you in, that's not going to change your homestead status. That's not going to change your classification. Because if you rent 14 days or less, this doesn't apply. And also if you have use of the property, your own use of the property, and you rent it out, even if it's more than 30 days in a year, but you still use it and you have ownership use of it, that then your tax status doesn't change either. So we're talking clearly about property that is in the rental market, that is in competition with other people that are in the lodging business, and that's what they sought to clarify. So.
Huh.
And I sent a link out earlier to the board group, and I apologize because the underlining didn't come through in the caption that I screenshot that I grabbed, so it was hard to tell what was new and what was old, and I apologize for that. I did try to resend it so you could see what the new section was.
Thanks for the clarification. Basically what you're saying is a lateral move, meaning, so I don't have any, I advertise one of my cabins with VRBO, but it's clearly part of our resorts. But I know there are a lot of resorts now that have adjunct houses that they bought their neighbors' houses and decided to set up as a VRBO or Airbnb or what have you. So I know that they were interested in what's coming down the pike for that. So in other words, I think my county, Hubbard County here, is talking about changing some property tax classifications, I guess, sorry.
Right.
But I don't think that it's passed yet. So maybe having a state level clarification will help push that through. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, we always promote uniformity. We don't want the Hubbard County assessor to be treating properly different than the Cass County assessor, and that does happen. But they do have that ability. They get local assessors get a guidance document from the Department of Revenue about how they should be considering property. but it's just guidance. And so the guidance that they sent out that said all these vacation rentals were commercial properties, many, if not all of the assessors ignored that advice and waited for the legislature to clarify the law. So it is just guidance, and you can have a county that I won't say goes rogue, but it, you know, there's pressure on the county assessor to increase your valuation because they can increase the tax base just by increasing your valuation and changing your classification to bump you into a higher class. And that's all driven by, you know, county and local government tax revenue. Let's just, that's what the, I don't want, it's not a game. It's just, it's the tax policy. And we need to watch that because you can, it is a huge expense. And, you know, when they look at your real estate, and they say, you know what, real estate on Gull Lake is going for about $8,000 a foot. Your resort's going to be worth about 5.2 million bucks if you broke it up and sold it off. And that's what I'm going to place your tax at. That's a problem. And especially when you're trying to run a seasonal business, right? So we need to keep track of taxes. We've talked about the problem that we have with the 250 days and the workforce housing. We also are going to ask the legislature to update the property tax tiers that that are in place right now that help keep the resort property taxes down. This is a program that we started about 12 years ago when we fought to change the property tax code. And over time, as your valuations have gone up, we need to update those tiers so that we're really continuing to get the value of the tiers. So what used to be 500,000 valuation at 0.5%, we want to get that up to 750,000 because to get the same benefit that we thought we were getting when that first tiered program came into place. So changing those tiers.
Joel,
Yes,
can I
ma'am.
ask a question? Have the tiers ever been changed?
Yes, we've done it. We've done it once. Yeah.
Okay, so we can have hope that they've changed them. How
Yes.
long ago has it been since they've changed them?
If I go back and look at our little handouts that we leave behind for legislators, I know I put in there in our last handout when the last time it was updated, but it's been 10 years at least, and the date is not emblazoned in my memory right now, but it's been many years.
2008
2008. Okay.
is what looked from last year's.
Okay. I knew I put it in there. I was going to say 2009, but I didn't want to guess on the date. So
We're close.
You think it could be a successful year trying this out with the budget problems?
well, one of the things that is unique about property tax is that it mostly goes to local units of government.
Right.
And so changing the tiers, what we fight on this issue is that as they hold some property taxes down for taxpayers, let's just say let's just use $1,000 as an example. The government needs to raise $1,000 in property taxes. And if you minimize it on one property, and let's say they are paying $10 and now they are going to pay $8, they got to make up those other $2 across the rest of the properties, right? So there is a small transference of that with 800 resorts across the entire state. It's minuscule. It is negligible to everyone else, but that is our burden to carry to pass that. And quite frankly, we've had good support from local units of government saying, We need our resorts. We need lodging. Without lodging, people don't come here if they can't have a place to stay. That impacts our bait shop, our restaurant, our general store, our grocery store. We want our resorts and we're happy doing this. That's generally been the response. But it takes us time to build that coalition, and that's, you know, kind of our job. And educating our legislators is to reemphasize our interaction with legislators, making sure they have the ability to talk about this to their colleagues is really important. Property taxes are harder to follow than a mafia hitman, and trying to let our legislators articulate what is happening when we want to adjust these tiers is really important, because there'll be meetings where we're not sitting in the room. And that's why we need our resort area legislators to carry our water for us.
One big item I see on my property taxes that is just absolutely ridiculous. It's called, I think it's called a waste tax on each
Okay.
page.
Yep, that's a county issue, but
And I've called and talked to the gentleman under the waste program. And one year he did take some money off because I said, I don't understand what this is. He goes, well, when you go to the dump and you bring your trash, I go, well, I live on the reservation. My trash is not picked up by the county. I don't take anything to the waste station. I have someone that comes out and picks up all of our salvage. So where am I done? How am I using this? I wasn't. But yet I'm paying a lot of money for something I do not use. Is that something that is worth working on, or?
it's worth working on with your, and I don't know if you're in Cass or which county you're in, but
The county level to go to meetings and complain?
kind of, and here's why. The legislature has done two things. They have mandated that counties, in particular, not cities, counties are responsible for solid waste management. That's their obligation, that's their job, and they have to do it. They have to have an approved solid waste management plan. They have to provide opportunities for recycling. They have to provide, by law, they have to provide these services. To pay for that, they've given counties tools to assess residents for the recycling program and for household hazardous waste and for some garbage collection, and they've given them the ability to place that on your property tax. Some counties do it, some counties don't. It's really up to the taxpayer to say, I should be exempt, I don't generate, and they will make adjustments, but it's not really a legislative issue for us because it is all imposed by the county.
I can get squeaky. Okay, thank you.
I represent one of those pesky counties in southwestern Minnesota. And so I do garbage work. I'm a garbage lobbyist. There's only about 4 of us, but so I do know a lot about that particular program, unfortunately. And so that'd be my advice.
I wonder if a lot of people have even noticed that one on their taxes. I don't know if everybody's even seen that line. It's very small, and it's like, I was going through it one day, and just every line I came across, and I had to call and talk about it. And that's when it was explained to me. I'm like, oh, this is a joke.
Legislators do watch those. There's special taxing districts, and whether you have a watershed district or a water management organization or your township board, or, you know, there's sometimes 6 or 7 different little line items on your property tax bill that make up your overall bill. And legislators do try and pay attention to them, like watershed districts can only levy so much. And so they do try and pay attention.
Okay, thank you.
So would it be anticipated that we're going to be visiting and online with representatives from like EMT and Department of Natural Resources?
You know, Jim, we haven't talked about that directly, but that would be my intention, that we do try and engage with the partners that we've engaged in the past. I want to talk to somebody in the administration. I want to talk to the DNR. I want to talk to the explore Minnesota tourism, and how are we going to rebound and grow out of the pandemic. So my thoughts are, yes, we should be engaging with those partners that we've done in the past, but I'm open to suggestion if you don't think it's valuable with the larger group. I personally was thinking that we would do that, but
I think it is, for example, the DNR, they stopped some fishery restocking last year because of COVID. They're talking about a four fish limit for walleye.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's prudent statewide, like they did with the northerns. They created zones, which I thought was pretty effective when they increased the limit on that, because there were so many small northerns in some lakes. As well as just one thing that really bugs me about the DNR is every year Bob stands up there and says, we're not in the lodging business.
right.
And now Vermilion has created lodge, camp or resorts essentially up in Vermilion on State Park.
Yep.
And
I saw
every
that
year,
email you sent me.
yeah, every year we hear the same thing from Bob about, we're not in the lodging business. We don't want to be in the lodging business. But I'm telling you, on their website, there are a ton of cabins and yurts and camper cabins and all types of different accommodations that are getting more and more prevalent, and they're cheap. They're inexpensive. They've got a significant competitive advantage over us, both labor-wise, tax-wise, the whole 9 yards. And it's not fair.
Preaching to the choir, of course, because I totally agree with you. I did go back and look when you sent me that email about the cabins, the rustic cabins that were opening on the in the new Vermilion State Park, Tower Sudan State Park. Actually authorized, like when Governor Pawlenty was Governor Pawlenty was responsible for the initial purchase, and he promoted it, of the state acquiring that property. I don't remember if they got it from Blandon or which paper company that was putting that on the market, and the state bought it. That has been in the works for a long time, and it's still aggravating as hell, because we've been through the issues with them. We're not going to have Wi-Fi, we're not going to have the running water. We're going to have bullshit. I mean, that's all there. That was all part of that email. And I read the same thing you read, and I've heard the same speeches that you have heard. They have a certain authorized complement of camper cabins that they're able to build, and I don't think they're at that point yet. But it is frustrating as hell, and I hear you. So
Ultimately, it'd just be easier if they said, yeah, we're going to continue to build them. I mean,
it would be less. It would be more transparent for us, right? At least we know. It's like they try to sell us on the fact that they're a gateway for people that get an experience of the outdoors, and then they'll come to resorts. And some of that may be true, but there's a great line. I don't know everybody on the group, but there's a great line in one of my favorite movies, The Outlaw, Josie Wales. he tells the senator who's lining up the troops, the rebel troops, and telling them how good it's going to be. And Josie Wales says, "Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining." And that's exactly what is happening with us with the DNR. They tell us the same thing about, and I like these people. Don't get me wrong. I like Bob Meyer, and I like working with the DNR, but they've told us for years about their approach to lodging, and it's just not really ever been followed through with. And the Wi-Fi is one that jumps out at me. We're not doing that. We're never having Wi-Fi. Now they're like, well, we can't get people to come if we don't have Wi-Fi. It's like, neither can we. We got to pay for it. So It is frustrating.
No, Joe, I think I really would encourage if we could have those similar type meetings like we've had when we do the Day on the Hill, it'd be appropriate. You know,
Right.
there's several other DNR related items out there. You know, wakeboard boats is one that's getting talked about a little bit out there. We definitely want to make sure we get back on fish stocking program. And I know
Did you guys get the email? And I'll send it to the board if you didn't, but I want to talk about a statewide 4 walleye limit because it is going to be proposed as a bill. And one of our friends, Carrie Rude, called me and she's going to carry it. And she has been in favor of that in the past. And Rod Eklund from, from International Falls is going to carry it in the House, and he called me as well. And they want to know what our thoughts are on it. And so the 4 walleye one we do need to talk about because it is going to be an issue that we're going to have to take a pro, opposed, or neutral position on because we're going to be asked. But I got an email right after I got done talking to Senator Rude from the DNR talking about how successful the 2020 fish stocking program was in 2020. And I had just hung up the phone with Senator Rude, who told me they didn't do any stocking in 2020, and because of COVID, and they didn't do any, and they didn't grow any. It completely inconsistent with what we had just talked about, and I'll send that to the group because I thought stocking was not happening in 2020 as well. So
I'm not aware of that they did anywhere. I know they they strip them up here on the north end of Whitefish, and that was closed all spring.
Right.
So.
Yep.
So.
I don't have an opinion about the 4 walleye limit. Should we take like a straw poll of the people present here of who are for it and who are against to give you an idea? Or what do you need from us, I guess? Do we need more discussion about that topic before we before we make a stand, obviously?
well, I mean, I would like direction, quite frankly, and I think we should develop a position of some sort relative to that issue, and we don't need to do it today. We need to know it's on the horizon and is something that is going to be discussed at the Capitol. Many of the lakes, according to Representative Eklund, already have the 4 walleye limit. Like he's on Rainy, and he said we've had it for a long time, and people are fine with it. Lake of the Woods does not have it, and that's one of the places that I worry about a little bit as a destination, moving the limit lower, and will that have an impact on people coming there? But we should develop a position on that issue.
Say, Joel, are they talking about? My thought was always I don't have a problem with smaller limits if they up the position limit. So let's say they drop down to 4 walleyes, but let them take 8 home in their possession. Then they're given, but they're getting. So it's kind of like a happy medium. Is there any discussion on anything like that? I mean, are they going to up the daily possession, or are they just going to cut the limit to 4 and that's it?
From what Senator Rude told me, she's not doing anything with the possession limit. And I asked about that to yesterday to Rod Eklund, and I said, well, if you go out on Lake of the Woods and you have a shore lunch, and you go out and catch 6 more, and he said, we want to make sure that the 6 that you catch that you have for lunch are your limit for the day. And well, good luck enforcing that one, but he's not looking at changing the possession limit either. So
I think Mr. Eklund is being somewhat disingenuous with this, that everybody's okay with it. the reason they're okay with it up on Cabotogama and Namakan and Rainy is that you get 4 walleyes, but those lakes have healthy populations of saugers, and you can fill out the rest of your 6 with saugers, and so people. Hang on a second. So people have been okay with it because they could still get 6 fish.
Right.
But you come down where I am, where there aren't any saugers, it becomes a whole nother ball game, and people are not going to be okay with it.
Well, and he said, he mentioned that because he said the limit on Lake of the Woods is 4 walleyes. And then he said, but the daily limit's 6 and you have to have the saugers, because we did talk about that. So, and Lake of the Woods has a lot of saugers as well. So, and I don't think they're changing that. So Lake of the Woods would still have a 4 walleye limit, but you can still get your 2
6 fish.
saugers too, right? Yeah.
Maybe it's just the pandemic, or maybe it's whatever it is, but there's never been more business in the area that we are, especially at Red Lake, and their
Yeah.
limit way restricted,
Right.
and it always has been. And there hasn't been an issue with people coming. And we aren't open in the winter now,
Right.
and we turn away 2 to 3 calls a day and refer them to the CMR website.
Sure.
But there's just, it's ridiculous. I mean, look in the paper and look at how many people are up there every weekend. And they hire kids to park cars 6 miles away just to get people to be able to go out on the lake. And
Who would have thought 20 years ago we should have been investing in Ice Castle, huh?
Right.
yeah, no kidding, right?
Jeez.
There
But
were
that's-
3,000 ice houses on Red Lake last weekend.
Whoa.
Where I'm at on Highway 2, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, it is a steady stream of ice houses headed west on 2 to head up to Red Lake.
Red Lake.
I mean, between my road and downtown Grand Rapids, 12 miles, I counted 37 the other day going into town on Friday. It was just crazy. And then you get in town, you look down 169, and it's just a line of them south out of town.
Right.
I'm telling you, had I only had the knowledge 20 years ago, I'd be a rich man today.
So what are we saying here, you guys? Those of you who've spoken up and have an opinion about it, are you for the limit or not for the limit at this point right now?
If they're not going to do something with possession in exchange, so you keep, I like everybody happy. Everybody knows that. I like to keep everybody happy, but I'm not in favor of it if they're not going to budge on that possession limit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Mark, do you have an opinion?
I would.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Or no, go ahead. I thought she was talking to me. No, go ahead. I would just say that I disrespectfully disagree, and I would. They're doing special regulations on our lake, and they've done that forever. So we're in a different spot than everybody else, and I get that. But I would have no problem with them going to 4 if the possession limit stays the same as what it is. Some of the special regulations that they've tried out on our lake haven't been that. But I would be indifferent if they went to 4.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my concern is we keep taking stuff away. At what point are we hanging a closed for business sign at every entrance to Minnesota? That's my concern. Because the people that are coming to us from out of state do not perceive that there's a fish shortage of any kind. And if we keep telling them okay, you get less fish than last year, less fish, we might as well, I think, just close it up there, because they're going to quit coming at some point.
Okay. Mike, did you have an opinion?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'll be honest, I'm kind of neutral. Because for us personally, it's not going to have any impact one way or the other. However, I'm not a fishing resort, and that's not what I rely heavily on. So I really would default to those. I get nervous when they start restricting stuff, like you said, Bob. It's like, where does it end? The flip side, I look at what they did with Northerns a couple of years ago. That was a home run, in my opinion. I encourage people, but once a week in the summer, I'm showing somebody how to take live bones out, or I'm teaching them how to pickle Northerns. Because it's to pickle them is super easy, and people like it, and they can make it themselves. And so that's kind of fun. And it's nothing to go out and catch a half dozen, those little hammer handles and, chop them up and have, pickled fish. So I guess I don't know enough about it. I'm a little, I'm surprised I really didn't hear much locally because Carrie's in our representative or our senator here. I guess I'd like to find out more before I would be on board with it. But I guess I'm neutral right now. I agree with Mark to some extent. You look at red, what is it, 2 fish up there, I think right now that they can keep. But I just don't, I get nervous every time they start tweaking that statewide. I like local, more regional type of an approach to some of that, because I don't think the same thing in Stearns County applies to Lake of the Woods. I really don't. I just, I'm not going a tangent, but similar with COVID and restrictions. I think each region has unique characteristics. And Bob, you're 100% right. We don't have sauger. So I can go up to Lake of the Woods, and there's times I've caught 6 sauger. I'm fine with that.
Right.
But we don't have that to supplement the walleye bag, if you will. But from me, from a resort owner on whitefish chain, it would not change anything for me that I could see. How about you? Kate? How about you?
I agree with Mike there. For us anyways, we haven't been a fish camp in 20 years. I'm more interested in the jet skis and the wake boat issues. But the DNR stocks us odd years, so typically we would get stocked about 500 pounds this year. It's not uncommon to pull a trophy walleye out of this lake, but you'll work all damn week to get 3 walleye anyways. So I do like the regional control, like Mike said. Statewide rules, I don't agree with. Having my own fights with the health department and their dumbass statewide rules. So yeah.
Well, and the DNR has been supporting lake specific regulations as the proper management tool. We don't need to do we don't need to do the 4 walleye limit on some water bodies, and we need to do it on others. So they have not been gung-ho about the 4 walleye limit statewide because to them it's not really based on the science of the lake. And so I think just based on our conversation, I think we kind of owe it to Senator Rude and Representative Eklund to report back to them that we'd like to have a conversation with them because we have concerns about it. And we'd like to hear a little bit more about what their thoughts and rationale are before we're ready to give it a thumbs up or down. And they've asked us for that input. And I think that that we should try and have a broader discussion with the membership with them about it. And maybe we can do that on the 27th. I got the impression the bill is going to be introduced relatively early in the session. They won't be taking any action until much later in the year, in March and April. But I don't think we should let too much grass grow under our feet so that they don't say, well, gee, you knew about it, or you never said anything. So I think we should try and get back to them relatively soon.
Do we also need to give them information about the other topic that Casey brought up, the wakeboard stuff? Because I know that they've been craving, at least I've been asked a couple of times, what's your opinion on wakeboard stuff? So do we need direction on that also? I know the last time I checked in as a group, we hadn't made a position on that.
Right. And I
think
still
you might
remember
have to educate some people.
I still remember Bob having to sit in front of the committee and give our non-position, which he did well. But absolutely, we need to have some type of position on the wakeboard boats, whether it's distance from shore, distance from other boats, hours of operation. We have several of them on our lake, and those waves are huge. I mean, you don't want to be around in a 14-foot Lund resorter, that's for sure. So it's tough.
Those who aren't familiar with those wake boats, they create a significant wave that you can actually ski behind.
Oh yeah.
You can water ski behind it.
No,
and
surfboard.
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 Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 4 foot, 5 foot wave, and it disrupts because of the depth the water column goes down to. It disrupts the
Sediment.
potentially the bottom of the lake and spawning beds and those types of things. My lake is an environmental lake and it's very shallow. It's a big lake. It's 7,900 acres, but it's very shallow. It only averages about 12 foot across the whole lake. And when you have that type of wave disruption in shallow areas, it's disrupting the fish and the the spawning beds and
The
everything.
habitat.
Yep. So, it is something that we have to be aware of and talk to them about, because on my lake, there should be an ability for local counties to restrict those on different types of lakes.
They are
My
starting
lake,
to.
what's that?
Pokegama down in Grand Rapids, they're doing, last I heard they were gonna ban the things outright, which I don't think is right, but they're working on it.
Yeah, and every classification of lake has different rules and regulations. I'll put it
Right.
that way. And if we could look at it from that standpoint, if it's a recreational lake, they have to stay so far from shore, blah, blah, blah. Environmental lakes, depending on, there's a lot of different factors that go into those wakeboard or wake boats and the disruption. And I know that there's a group in Minnesota doing some studies through the University of Minnesota. Those results have not come out yet. But for me, it's a concern on my lake for sure.
There's been some preliminary science back talking about the sediment churn. I think I quoted it for our lake association, and one of the big concerns, whole coalition of lake associations, which is a big one in Hubbard County, their biggest concern is how wakeboards affect AIS, aquatic invasive species spreading, because of that ballast, that the sheer volume in there. It just a number one risk factor in their eyes right now of
The transmission.
Joel, tell me if I'm wrong, but those boat manufacturers have a lot of money backing the building of those boats. I mean, are we going down a rabbit hole that is even worth fighting those big boat manufacturer companies? Because when you're spending $80,000 to $120,000 on a boat, those manufacturers aren't going to just let that business go. You know what I mean?
I do. Although aren't we the gateways to natural resources? Don't we have a responsibility to try to?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, because I talked to quite a few people about this, and I don't know. My cousins in particular, they're on 8th Crow Wing, and they just bought one, and they're super. They try to be super respectful and everything, and I was telling them that this might be coming down the pike, and they're like, I doubt it. I mean, they just don't think it's going to change because the boat manufacturers have so much power. So it's just a thought that I had. I don't know.
Here's what
one comment, if I can.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
My internet connection's not the greatest, so I apologize. I'll type in the chat if I need to, but just something to keep in mind, since we're an organization that represents all resorts. I know of one resort who has a wake boat that he does rent out. So that is an income stream for him. And I would imagine he's the minority, but it is something that we do need to consider.
I personally don't want to ban. I just want a little bit tighter rules on them, so that when they're misbehaving, I can at least point to the board and say, no, the law is not 150 feet, it's 150 yards. Or even some guidance that says, hey, the whole bay is empty, it's a mile wide. Why the hell are you 2 feet off of somebody's dock? Get your ass out there in the middle. Kind of how we jet skis. I'm not a fish camp. For 10 weeks out of the summer, we do jet skis, wake boats, pontooning. If anybody throws a line in the water, it's on an odd day just for the hell of it. I need wake boats, but they need to behave because my lake association tries to shoot me every 3 days over the damn things. So
Right. Joel, we got about a minute. So do you want a quick wrap up at all, or anything else that you wanted to throw out?
Let me just put a little more context on the wakeboard. The bill that's being promoted is actually being promoted, James, by the boat manufacturers. It's not being promoted by the lake associations. They want to have a regulation of 250 feet because they don't want to have every individual lake putting them out of business. It's developed into a very controversial issue at the Capitol. The chair of the House Environment Committee is not at all in favor of the manufacturer's proposal and is in favor of being able to ban them from certain lakes. If the conditions are present, he's an outdoorsman and he's a trout fisherman and he knows the lake turbidity and the problems that these boats cause for the habitat. So the manufacturers have a long way to go before they pass a bill that gives us a statewide regulation. And a lot of people that are opposed to it. I think that key to this whole discussion is that we always retain the ability of local jurisdictions to have local regulations. And if you've got a 12-foot lake and you know that at 5 miles an hour or 8 miles an hour, when they're creating a big enough wave, that wave action goes down 10 feet to disturb the lake bed, that's a problem. And that's what the science is telling us right now. And so you need to have local regulation, and 250 feet just doesn't cut it. It's not in those instances, it's not the distance from shore. It's the distance from the bottom of the lake that are the real environmental impact. So it's a long debate. We need to be engaged in it. And I wish there were more science out there about the impacts, but that is just being developed now. But what we do know is not particularly good. So.
Any last, how are things, how was day one at the Capitol?
Chaotic. Yeah, chaotic. And it was, they were swearing in. Now, this is 41 sessions for me at the Capitol. And this is the first time they had to have people on the Hollywood squares raise their hand and swear their oath. They had to do it all remotely. The Senate did some in person, some remote. But it's different, it really is. And the pandemic is unfortunately more divisive in the Capitol than what you would like. There isn't a uniform mindset about how the building should operate. And the House is completely remote, closed. Their employees don't come into work. They all are working remotely. The Senate's a little different. And that is at some point going to be a problem for groups like us. So if you have a senator who says, I'm not going to talk to you unless you come to my office and meet with me, what are you going to do? Right? I mean, if you're uncomfortable going in there and that's the only way you can have access, there's going to be issues that are like that are going to develop. So it was an interesting first day. And after the day, I didn't think I would be saying this, but after the day we had in Washington yesterday, I'm already looking forward to 2022. I've had about enough of 2021 already. So it's got to always have something to look forward to.
Well, Mike must have had a potty break here. I tell you, I kind of wanted to ask one little quick, I don't know if it's possible to be quick or not.
Sure.
Be closing down, but I wanted to ask you really quickly about post-Labor Day school start. And
Yep.
There was a senator that you said we need to be wary of, and that's going to be an issue yet again this year that we need to stay on top of, according to you. Is that correct still?
It is. And I'm multitasking here a little bit, so just give me a second. Every Thursday at 11 o'clock, the Department of Economic Development has an update call for there's usually like 100 people that join in on this call. What's going on? What are the guidances that are coming out? What's coming? So I'm logging into that while we're talking here. So on Labor Day, we know that I gotta make sure that I'm on mute over here. Yeah, all good. We know that the schools are going to want to take advantage of the pandemic to change the school calendar. Whether it's we need to get the kids back into school early because we've had all this time out or all the distant learning, which we know isn't as effective, the school calendar is going to be an issue for us. And so we're going to have to stay on top of it. And the chair of the education committee, Carla Nelson, has now moved to become the chair of the tax committee. And the problem with that is that the tax committee has a much greater ability to pass out perks to their colleagues through tax increment financing and other local things that they want. And so we need to keep an eye on her. She's the chief proponent of changing the law. And she called me during the pandemic, can we just do it for this year? And so it's not going away for her, and she's from Rochester, and so we're gonna need to educate people about the importance of our tradition of summer, and absolutely we want kids to be in school safely, but there's no reason that you have to disturb the law that's been in place since 2005. So.
We're not going to change her mind, but what we can do is talk to the new legislators coming in and make sure that they're aware of our stand and why.
Right. Well, and we know how important it is to us, and while the school districts did get all their money, and the school bus companies got paid, and the cooks got paid, and they all got their school aid, that ain't true for business. And if the things that you can do to help us continue to be in business are really important. So that's my message, or that I think we need to be working on. So
great message. I love that.
I like to remind everyone that when we hit this pandemic, the resorts were here for people to come and enjoy in a safe manner.
Yeah.
And it would be a shame if we were all gone and people had nowhere to go. And once we're gone, we're not coming back.
Music to my ears.
Thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it.
Nope, no worries.
All right. Mike, where are we at with everything?
I think we're good. Sorry, I had a check didn't get here, so I had to step away for a minute, but guys going fishing. So
good.
Came in early, which is fine. But yeah, I think we'll, Joel, you and I will be in touch, obviously, with getting stuff on board for the 27th. We'll want to, we'll get that out to our members as quickly as we possibly can. I think also I definitely personally going to look more into this walleye regulation and try to get information out to our group and the board specifically if we are going to take a position on it one way or the other.
Right.
Maybe the position is we, let it to the individual jurisdictions. I don't know. We'll come up with a plan on that. And
well, that's the status quo, right? If the DNR keeps managing the resource the way they have been, now that drives some people crazy if you're on Mille Lacs or some other place, right? But I mean, if they keep doing it the way they're doing it, the status quo, we can live with that.
Do you know what the push is on that?
I think that the biggest problem expressed by both Senator Rood and Eklund is overfishing. Yeah, they really think there is a depletion of the resource in a way that is going to be difficult to come back from.
Okay.
I can I can see that. I don't have a problem with going down to 4 fish without giving something up, but I know on Plantagenet, we've been here, 25 years. And over the last how many years, they stock walleye every other year, fry. And our average size of walleye has dramatically dropped. So instead of catching 2-pound fish, you're down to 1.25 pound fish is your average fish. So I can see where the fishing pressure is definitely doing some harm to the lakes.
Well, and part of that, they, at least Eklund, traced to technology, right? I mean, the ability to find a fish and catch it now is a lot different than it was you know, 20 years ago. And that's part of it. Right?
They actually, somebody has a depth finder out now that when it shows the fish, if it's a flat bar, it's a northern, and if it's got a hump on it, it's a walleye.
Wow.
You can
For about-
the new live scope by Garmin Panoptics, you can see the actual fish. You can see the gills and the fins on top. And I mean, they're $3,000 to buy them, but you can see exactly what's underneath you out to 80 feet from your boat. They're pretty nuts.
You know, so what's interesting is, you know, like we're on Whitefish Chain here, and quite honestly, the fishing pressure here is non-existent. It's a recreational lake, you know, like Casey was saying, more people are pulling jet skis and that than are fishing. So really, for me, it's like, yeah, whatever. But I know, Clint, you know, you got a smaller lake, and, you know, you look at like a lake that all it has to do, and with the other side of it is social media. Couple people start saying, I'm talking about a lake, and it goes from 3-4 people on there to 100 literally overnight.
Right.
And so that's where I think there probably is some legitimacy to some of those concerns. But again, I just really struggle with doing something statewide that doesn't need to be statewide. So,
you know what we found out, Mike, is that since we've been doing boat inspections down there, Lake Plantagenet is the busiest lake in Hubbard County.
Wow.
They do the most on all the lakes they inspect. We have the most inspections, but half of them are musky guys. So, you know, you gotta kind of take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
The other thing that we didn't touch on and we should be thinking about, which is, I told Eklund that we were going to do our day on the hill remotely, and he said, "You mean I'm not going to get a Daredevil or a boat? I got to have that stuff." And I said, "We're working on it. We're working on something that we can leave you a little care package before your moment on Zoom when you talk to the resorters. So let's be thinking about what we can." We talked about leaving the care package at the Capitol and getting them the information that we're going to go over when we talk to them. So let's be thinking about what we can.
They're already looking for it, huh?
Yep. And if we're up to me, I'd be thinking of like the Daredevil thing was awesome. And I can put something like that in an envelope. It's not going to get broken. You know, the boat, which was great, but it's got the oars glued onto it, and that might not travel quite so well. It's a little thicker. So something that we can put in like a bubble envelope that we can have addressed to each of them with our issue paper, right? And our leave behind for the year. I think we should be thinking about it. So that's a tradition that we should try and continue even in a closed Capitol.
Nope, that sounds, I concur, and we kind of talked a little bit about it at the end of the board meeting yesterday or the other day, and we're definitely going to pursue something, and knowing that part of it helps. So it, you know, so kind of restricts size and concept. So
right.
Everybody start thinking.
Okay.
Kristen, I see your wheels turning up there. So, you know, we aren't going to make painting as a requirement on this one, though. So
I'm not the creative person. That's Jim. So
you mean you could hear that squeaking from those wheels turning?
Even I could see the squirrels from here running on that wheel.
So
Okay.
well, I think we're good. So
all right, team.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and
as always,
be in touch. We'll look forward to obviously seeing you on the 27th or sooner. So
okay, sounds good.
Thank you. All right. Is that it for the meeting, Mike?
I think we covered it. So, yeah, unless anybody has any last minute questions or concerns or something they want to talk to the group about. So,
I got one, or just something. Invasive species. This last year, we actually ended up closing our boat launch to the public. Helped keep me on my own Lake Association's good graces in the process. We're the only resort on turtle here, so I was just wondering how everybody else is handling those issues. If your lakes are still clean, or
We've got them. We lock ours, and myself or one of my guys has to go down to do it. So we do a inspection and that, it's, the trouble is, if they tell you, yeah, it's been fine, how do you prove it?
Mhm.
That's, and I guess we just look at it as a continuing educational. We just try our best to keep people informed, and we get a lot of out-of-staters, and they're like, what do you mean you got to pull the plug to drive? I'm like, you got to pull your plug, so when you get here, we'll go up, and we got enough space around outside the lake bed area where it would go in, where we have hoses and stuff. We make them rinse out as best we can. I know that's not 100% effective, but it helps, so.
Sure.
Oh, you Clint?
Yeah, we actually, I actually inspect all the boats before they go in, and I got Patty trained, so if I'm not around, she can. But yeah, you walk around, check. They all know I do it. We got signs posted. We got hoses set up. I got a hot water jetter if they need to do a pressure wash real quick, to kill anything in there. I got a lot of guys trained that if they're coming from an infested lake, a lot of them will have bleach in their live wells. They do things like that just so that, they're trying to keep things clean. But yeah, I personally inspect all boats, and it seems to work, and people don't mind. Usually the musky guys are the ones that squawk the most, and probably traveling with the plug. And the guys from Wisconsin, they don't have to have their plug out. So that's a big thing for Wisconsin boaters. They always have their plugs in. But
So Clint, you said you got a hot pressure washer.
Yep.
How much investment is that?
Well, I do winter rentals, and I have frozen sewers sometimes, so that hot water jetter works good for those. You can get them for about $1,500 to $2,000. I bought a nice $5,000 one because I wanted the beast. But and you can go right up to shooting straight steam out of them. But I tell you what, from an old style steamer to 3 hours unplugging a sewer line to 15 minutes with the jetter, worth every penny when it's 40 below. Just saying. And I've offered to wash boats if they need them, but we're only 5 miles from town, or actually 4 miles to the closest car wash. So if there's an issue, I usually just send them up to the car wash, because time I drag it out, fire it up, get it set up, it's more pain to me than just.
We're about 30 miles, so.
Right.
We're all middle nowhere.
I thought about the same thing. We thought about setting up a little station to spray wash down stuff, but I needed to figure out where to do it so that the runoff from their boat
doesn't
go right in the lake.
Issue is that my supply for hot water is right near the lake. I don't have a hot water supply in like a back area where it gets safely done.
But that hot water jetter also works good for washing cabins, decks. That hot water cleans stuff up way quicker than cold water. You'd be surprised the difference.
Just portable then, Clint?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's on 4 wheels, and it's kind of heavy, but you wheel around. It's got a 15 horse or 12 horse motor on it, and it's got its own gas tank, and you fire it up and kick in the boiler, and she runs till she runs out of fuel or water. So I needed a tax write-off 1 year, so I just bought it.
I've had pretty
Same
good
as this year.
I've had pretty good luck, Casey, with I don't know if you send your guests like 3 or 4 days beforehand a little communication before they arrive. Hey, glad you're coming. But on that, I use the opportunity to just make a blurb. If you're at the very top, if you're bringing a boat, please scroll down to bottom, exclamation point. At the very
It's
bottom.
something we want to start doing kind of this spring, and the main focus is the invasive species thing. I'm fully aware that I got a whole bunch of redneck neighbors that are going to throw their John boat in the back of the truck and go from Sand Lake over to here, and we're going to be screwed anyways. I just don't, if it happens at my boat launch, my lake association will crucify me. And they're in our area, they are pretty powerful. They even try to stop North Star's RV expansion because Rodney wouldn't take the invasive species class.
Oh.
They like to stick their nose in just about everything. I try to keep on the good graces of the board, and I do favors and all that, but we get shot at routinely, so.
Yeah, but you want to do the best job you can to protect your resource, though. So you don't want to be the gateway for some zebra mussels coming in, which are the insidious ones. The zebra. So you can look visibly for stuff, but it's those little veligers from zebra mussels that you can't see that is helpful for that hot water wash. So I hesitate to send people to the car wash thinking they know what the hell they're doing. Probably not. They'll just do. We've got a free, in Hubbard County, as Clint knows too. We've got a free decontamination unit at the landfill. But for us, that's like 16 miles away, and for him to send people, that's probably 45 miles anyway. So not convenient for sure. So it's been helpful for me to write and make it a big deal, sending out a few days beforehand to guests, because I'm sending it anyway, this little communication. And then I've also put a link in the bottom. One of my guests had this idea, so I can't take credit for it, but he said, why don't you put this link to where people can find their local decontamination unit. So before they even come up from the cities, they could do this, get their boat washed on a Tuesday when I send out this communication. So they're thinking about it and they get it done before they come. That's helped. The preventative thing has helped, I think, a lot.
A lot of it's just on your repeat business. You just educate them, and they actually come find me. Hey, you got to inspect my boat before I put it in. Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm coming. So you just got to keep on them, and people learn, and they don't want to wreck where they're fishing either. So
no, and most of our guests, I mean, we had the association. They do the inspections at the public landing and stuff, and the board came to me about 4 years back and all concerned. I said, well, of course I'm concerned. I have the biggest investment on this lake yet. And we have 3,400 feet of lakeshore now on this thing. I think I'm the second biggest landowner next to the state of Minnesota. So of course I care. And they were just, we didn't think you would be. And yada. And it was like, oh, let's figure it out. And they were doing inspections at our boat ramp. And they gave it, I think, 3 days. And they said, there's no point in us being here. You guys are all good and fine. They go to the public access where they're dealing with locals hopping around from lake to lake or whatever. And that's where they see the biggest issue. And last year when we closed our boat launch to the public, it forced everybody else over there. Right. And the folks on the Lake Association made it big enough. We're a big enough pain in the ass over there. It dropped lake traffic by about 30% last July. We don't have a lot of turnaround space over there. They parked their truck in just the right spot, so you couldn't really get more than 2 trucks and trailers in the site. And I mean, they pissed off everybody in the neighborhood, but at least they was pissed off at them and not at me. So I'll take it. But
I have a quick burning question. Actually, does anybody do their own 1099s and W-2s?
We do.
How do you print out does your accountant print out your 1099? So I've done my W-2s, but I'm sure if there's
we print them ourselves.
How do you have to get the forms from 1099?
Yep.
Do you buy the actual forms from the IRS and then print it out? Okay.
And print them out, yep.
I was hoping I could just file it by email and then print them out on plain paper. All right.
That's how we do it. I don't know if there's a different way, Kim, but we get the forms and print them out.
I thought maybe I'd ask. Well, anybody else have burning questions? Otherwise,
can I just add one thing? Hey guys, my out-of-state people, I was inspecting stuff and kind of educating more, like you said, and I get a lot of people from Illinois and Indiana. And one of the guys one year said, well, I've got a receipt showing I just had it cleaned before I left the state and drove up here. And so I have it in my thing that if you've had your boat professionally cleaned, bring me the receipt and you can just put in, I don't need to even know about it.
Oh.
And like somebody said, it makes them think before they come up, oh, I'm just going to get this done. It's one less hassle. We know it's done right. And I see quite a few come in that way now.
Do all of them can give receipts? The reason I say that is I usually go up one time. There's a little trout lake that's up north of Hackensack, and I take one of our boats. And so I have to go over to Cross Lake. They got it because I know we got zebra mussels. So I go there, get it decontaminated, right? Decontaminated. And I've never gotten anything from them, but I've never asked. So will they provide one if you go in and get it, have it done?
I'm not sure. I've seen, there's one place in Indiana that a few of my people come, and I kid you not, it's probably 100 box checklist. I mean, they say they've done this. And then I get other ones that are just like an old fashioned handwritten receipt book, 3 on a page from some guy who has a little boat place down in Illinois. But I figure if they're bringing it to me, they care enough to, ask for something, but there's no uniformity by any means.
Okay. All right. I was just curious about that because I have not seen them, but I'm not asked for one either though. So I'm intrigued by that. So
Yeah. Well, the one I got that was a little handwritten thing. It had no logo on it, no name of the business, no nothing. And I looked at the guy and I said, only because you've been coming to see me for 25 years, am I going to assume you didn't make this up? So.
You know what, Casey, I will copy and paste what I send out to people and put it on the just kind of, I'm a writer and it's way more text than you're going to need, but it might give you an example. At least you can use the link, you know, local decontamination units, particularly in the cities, because that's really where we're wanting to try to.
Almost everybody has to skirt the cities on the way up anyway. So even if it was something they could stop at noon, when they're doing lunch and when they're throwing a phone or that neck of the woods. So.
Oh, happy to share that. It's great to spread the word around. So the more links, the better. Cool. All right. Anything else?
Thanks, guys. I'm gonna get back at it.
My butt hurts. I need to go too. My bouncy ball is not doing it here. 2.5 hours is whoop. Okay, so it's a good talk today, though. I thought good discussion.
thanks everybody. So
Great.
Heading out. So you all have a great weekend. And
maybe I'll see you soon during reservation software demonstration.
We'll see you all soon.
Right. Bye. See you later, you guys.
See ya.